All right, so I wanted to just review going over the Vertex form, finding the roots. Just went through the Ed puzzle and our Google form that we did at the end. The class that was assigned, or the lesson that was assigned on Friday. And looks like we just need a little bit more review with that. So today, that's what we're going to do. We're just going to review finding the roots from the Vertex form. So in our example, we've got y equal to x minus 4 squared minus 16. So remember, when we do this, we get, let's see, use that color. Uh, so this is going to be our vertex, right? This tells us what our vertex is. Our vertex, right? That's where our parabola turns around, right? Our vertex is the change of direction. Okay, that's the point where it changes direction. Remember, when we write this out, we can use h and k for these two parts. And that is the x and y coordinate of our vertex. So that's the x coordinate. This is the y coordinate. Remember, you do the opposite of the sign here. So if it's negative, it actually means that it's a positive. So if we want to write the vertex, what we would do is just write it as 4 comma negative 16. So here's our vertex. And if I asked you what the axis of symmetry is, remember the axis of symmetry is going to run right through the vertex, symmetrical, because if I fold it along that line, this side of the curve would match up with that side of the curve. Not in my drawing, but with a regularly drawn parabola, it would. So it's always going to be x equals, because it's a vertical line. Remember, Vux, the vertical line, so we're going to have x equal to something. So it's going to be x equal to the x coordinate of our vertex. So in this case, it's x equal 4. All right, so those are just questions I could ask. You don't need to know what the vertex is, the axis of symmetry is, to find the roots, but you always want to be able to just pull it out of the equation. So first step, when we're doing this, and let me just erase the stuff that I have here. First step, what I want to do is I want to get this 16 to the other side. So I'm going to add, I'm going to do the opposite to go to the opposite side of the equal sign. I'm going to add 16 to both sides. Right, so I do that. I end up with 16 equal to x minus 4 squared. So all I do is I move the 16 to the other side. And now, nope. And now the next step, look at it, looks like I went too quick. The next step is I want to take the square root of both sides, right? Square root of both sides. When I do that, as soon as I put the square root sign down on this side, I always want to put that plus minus, because I'm going to have two roots. So x minus 4, remember the square root symbol eliminates the square, right? They eliminate each other. They cancel each other out. So I'm left with just x minus 4 on this side. And then on the other side, I have plus or minus the square root of 16. Square root of 16 is going to be 4. So we have plus or minus 4 is equal to x minus 4. Now I want to bring the 4 to the other side. When I bring that 4 to the other side, I got to do the opposite operation, just like before. We add 4 to both sides. I don't combine these. I put it out in front of this plus or minus. So I get 4 plus or minus 4 is equal to x. And now if I break that up, I go, okay, I'm going to have x is equal to 4 minus 4, and x is equal to 4 plus 4. So x is equal to 4 minus 4, and x is equal to 4 plus 4. So I end up with my roots being x is equal to 0, right? 4 minus 4 is 0, and 4 plus 4 is 8. All right, so those were the steps that we did. We reviewed that the last time. I just want to do a quick review, have you guys run through this at the Ed puzzle. I'm going to ask you what the vertex is. I'm going to ask you what the axis of symmetry is. And then I'm going to ask you to find the roots in the Ed puzzle. So here is your first student problem. We'll put it right there. So I'll pause. You guys answer the questions on Ed puzzle. All right. Now that you're back, we are going to move on to our second example. Again, the first question in the Ed puzzle I'll ask is, what's the vertex? Remember, our x-coordinate is right here for the vertex. It's the opposite sign, though. If it's a negative, it means that my x-coordinate is a positive 3. And then this, we use the sign right in front of it for our y-coordinate. It's negative 4. So the vertex with this equation, when we're in the vertex form, it pretty much tells us what the vertex is. So in this case, it's going to be +3, -4. And then my axis of symmetry is just x equals my x coordinate, right? It's Vux. I always use the x-axis, or I always use my x equal to for the axis of symmetry. So that's going to be x is equal to +3. All right, so first step, I want to get this x minus 3 squared by itself, so I got to get the 4 to the other side. When going to the opposite operation, I use when I go to the opposite side, I got to use the opposite operation. So I am going to add 4 to both sides. So I end up with 4 equal to x minus 3 squared. To get rid of this square right here, I want to do the square root sign on both sides. Remember, when I do the square root sign on this side, I want to put a plus minus in front of it. I've got 2 roots, right? 2 roots means my parabola is going to go through the x-axis twice. I've got 2 roots in this case. Or I have 2 x-intercepts, right? Remember we said we can use x-intercepts, we can use solutions, we can say roots, we could say, what's the other one? There's one more. Zeros, right? So I'm going to take that when I take the square root of this side, the square and the square root cancel each other out. So I am left with plus or minus the square root of 4 is equal to x minus 3. Now what I want to do is I want to bring my 3 to the other side. So, and I take the square root. So I take the square root of 4. Square root of 4 is going to be 2. Remember, it's plus or minus 2. I want to bring the 3 to the other side. I got to do the opposite of what it's currently doing. So I'm going to add 3 to both sides. So I add 3 to both sides. I can't combine these two. So I put the 3 in front. It's going to be 3 plus or minus 2. All right, so 3 plus or minus 2 is equal to x. Again, I've got 2 roots. So now I got to split the plus and minus up. So I go, all right, I know that one of my roots is x is equal to 3 minus 2. And one of my other root is x is equal to 3 plus 2. So when I do that out, I get x is equal to 1, x is equal to 5. All right, so now I'm gonna stop here, have you guys do your next problem in Edpuzzle. Again, I'm gonna ask you what the vertex is, what's the axis of symmetry, and then find the roots. So this is your second problem. So stop right now, do the Edpuzzle questions, and we'll come back. All right, so for our last part of this lesson today, what we're gonna do is just see, all right, now that I'm giving you the, look at this. All right, so now that we have an equation, or not that we have an equation, but we have the graph, right? So what I want you to do is, looking at this graph, can you tell me what the equation would be? Can you tell me what the axis symmetry is? Can you tell me what the vertex is? All right, so first thing, easiest thing to do is tell me what the axis of symmetry is. So again, axis of symmetry is going to go right along this line right here. I can't really draw exactly straight lines, but right, it runs right through our turnaround point, right through our vertex. Okay, so what's the equation of that line? It's x is equal to the x coordinate of my vertex. So 1, 2 goes right through 3. So my axis of symmetry is x equal to 3. And then my vertex, I go, okay, I know that my x coordinate is 3 because my x coordinate of my vertex is the same as the axis of symmetry. X is equal to 3. So I'm at 3, and now I just got to find the y coordinate of this point. So I'm at -5, -6, -7, -8, -9. So 3 comma -9 is my y coordinate for my vertex. So 3 comma -9. So now I want to write out what my equation would be. So if I write it out, I go, okay, y is equal to, it says an a, but right now I don't have an a, right? That would just be a coefficient that I'd have to multiply it by. But Right now we don't have an A for our value, so it's just a 1. We're going to work on that tomorrow or the next lesson. So right now it's just x minus my h. My h was, remember, h comma k is what my vertex is. That's how we represent it. So x minus h, so x minus 3. And then now so I do the opposite sign, right? So it's always a minus. If it's a positive value, it's going to be minus that value. If this was a negative 3, it would have been a plus the 3, right? So I always look at the opposite there. And then this would be the same. So it's plus k, but this case my k is a minus or negative 9, so I go minus 9. So that is my equation for, let's see, did I put it somewhere? Oh, I didn't even write it out. Okay, so y is equal to x minus 3 squared, right? Oh, I forgot the square. X minus 3 squared minus 9. All right, so now I'm going to stop. I'm going to give you guys your last problem from the Ed puzzle. I want you to do the same thing that I did here. I want you to write the axis of symmetry. I want you to write the vertex, and then I want you to put it in vertex form, okay? So here is your problem. So here's your graph. You're going to write out, and again, we've got so we're at on the x-axis. So I didn't write this one out. So on the x-axis, we're at 5 already, okay? So, and you can see the 10 is there, just so I can explain it out. So this is 6, 7, 8, 9 on the x-axis. On my y-axis, this is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're going to go down that way. I didn't put my origin on here. I should have, but looks like I cut it off. So again, on my x-axis, this is the 5 for my x-axis. On the solid line is 0 on my y-axis, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or -1, -2, -3, -4, -5 on the y-axis. And then you're going to figure out what your axis symmetry is, what your vertex is, and then write it in vertex form. All right, now stop here.